single phone call upending years of U.S. policy on the war in Ukraine while raising alarm among several European allies. The NATO chief repeating the crucial need for Kyiv to be, quote, closely involved in any peace talks after Washington marked a 90-minute conversation between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin as the start of negotiations. The German chancellor insisting a deal to end the war should not be imposed on Ukraine, while his defense minister expressed the regret that Mr. Trump's administration had made, quote, concessions to Moscow before talks had even started. But Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth denied that the U.S. president had betrayed Kyiv by opening this dialogue. President Trump spoke to Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky after his call with Vladimir Putin and slammed accusations that Ukraine had been excluded from direct negotiations. The US leader says he expects to meet President Putin in Saudi Arabia for more talks. And more, Dasha Chernyshyova joins us live from Moscow. Dasha, what has the Kremlin had to say about this 90-minute call between Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin?
Well, the importance cannot be underestimated, and in Moscow there is a very clear understanding that it was a needed phone conversation. And now the Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov has said that there is the need for organization of a prompt meeting between the two heads of state. So we understand that at this stage there has been the orders coming from the officials both in Russia and in the United States to the presidential aides to arrange such a meeting. We also understand that Moscow has started the establishment of a group that will be involved into the negotiations between the two countries, including on the situation in Ukraine. And Moscow also says that in those talks on Ukraine, Moscow will take into account the so-called eloquent experience that Russia had while there were negotiations in Minsk, because Moscow has been repeatedly saying that those talks in 2015, which ended the fighting between Kyiv and the Donbas republics, which was at least aimed to do that, Moscow was betrayed, and there was never a genuine desire on the part of France or Germany, who brokered that deal, to actually stop the fighting, saying that was buying time to rearm Kyiv. So now Moscow insists that the root causes of the Ukraine conflict have to be eliminated for any sort of lasting solution. But both sides do admit that there is the political will on both sides to actually work together and to find a solution. Moreover, they are insisting that this solution should be found on the basis of negotiations process. So at this stage, any ceasefire is not regarded as a prerequisite for a potential summit between the two presidents of the two countries. And also the format is yet to be established. Therefore, Moscow says it is unclear whether European countries or, for example, some mediators like China could be involved into this negotiations process. Also, very importantly, the Russian side has invited Donald Trump to visit Russia. And in the phone conversation, the Russian president has also stressed that the U.S. officials who are dealing with the areas of mutual interest for both sides are very much welcome on the Russian territory. So again, we understand that the work has started. The sides are preparing for the talks and they want to continue the dialogue. So definitely there is a stark change in what we saw before with the administration of Joe Biden, and now we are seeing under the new administration of Donald Trump.
All right, Dasha Chernyshyova, the reporting live from Moscow, a phone call that might very soon lead to an actual face-to-face. Well, Mr. Trump pushing fast ahead with plans to resolve the conflict in Ukraine. We spoke with Stuart Smith, who tells us more about Ukraine's approach to negotiating a settlement.
Volodymyr Zelensky, since the beginning of this year, has made quite a few public statements, which is in stark contrast to previous years, saying that he does accept there probably will need to be territorial concessions. He hasn't given up on the prospect of NATO membership. The Ukrainian foreign minister saying earlier that Ukraine still will be in NATO, and actually Sweden coming out a few hours ago to suggest the same. But on territorial concessions, he has said that will be most likely required. One idea he's proposing is effectively swapping the Kursk region of Russia, which Ukrainian troops advanced into last year, for one of Ukraine's regions that Russia has annexed. He said he doesn't know yet which one that might be, but it's one of the ideas he's proposing. He's open to the idea of territorial concessions, but Kyiv is concerned that the US is effectively giving ground on negotiations before they've begun. The other thing Ukraine is trying to do is keep the United States interested from a very pragmatic economic perspective by, for example, allowing it preferential access to Ukrainian critical minerals, gas, oil, resources in Ukraine that may keep the United States invested in Ukrainians' security in the future, either by protecting it from further Russian advances or by helping it gain back territory. And to that end, the US Treasury Secretary was in Kyiv to talk to President Vladimir Zelensky on Wednesday to try and further that side of things. The hope being in Kyiv, if they can get a good deal there, one that Donald Trump is happy with, perhaps the US will be willing to keep supplying military assistance and also economic assistance for the foreseeable future.